I've designed this projector mount to be very easy to make. In fact, the entire cut list consists of 5 pieces, and all of it can be cut from one 2-foot by 4-foot sheet of plywood that you can buy at your box store. My local Home Depot has a panel saw, so you could even get all these parts cut on the panel saw. The only thing they will not be able to do is this little angled section right here, but that's more for looks than it is for function, so you can just not worry about that. All of these dimensions are approximate as well. Like if it's slightly off from these dimensions, that's fine. I just laid it out for making sure it all fit on this one sheet of plywood. I'm in fact going to be using some scrap wood that I have in my shop that's from the offcuts from the pattern projecting cutting table that we built in the last several videos. We have a set of plans that you can purchase for that cutting table and for this project right here, and I'm going to walk you through step by step how to assemble this and then fit your projector to it. And then my wife, Branelyn at Dailey Sews and Stuff, is going to be doing another video where she makes this as a non-woodworker, and she's going to use a jigsaw and a cordless drill to do this very same project, and that's going to be on her channel as well. You can find plans to everything at therecreationalwoodworker.com or in the links in the description box of this video. Alright, let's get everything cut and we'll start assembling. As you can see, we have all of our pieces cut. We have our orange pieces right here. This is going to be for the mount itself. This blue piece right here in the middle is for the base. This green piece is for the riser that's going to support the projector, and these are our supports. So now we really just need to start assembling this. So this step is completely optional. You don't have to do this at all. I'm going to do it because I think it'll look nicer. So here, this is 4 inches. Up at the top for what's going to be the inside. So it's going to be the inside. So we're going to put an arrow right there. We're going to come over 1.5 inches. This is a completely arbitrary number. It's just what I picked that I thought looked good. I'm going to go ahead and extend my line down so I can see it well. Now I'm going to take a straight edge and I'm going to line it with the edge of my board here and with my piece right there, or with my mark that I made. And now I'm just going to hold it steadier than that and grab a pencil line. Now I'm using a cordless jigsaw here. You could cut like a zigzag design, whatever you want, but at the very least you want enough meat for your screws to go into. But so I'm just going to do as straight of a line as I can with a jigsaw. Alright, so that's my angle. It's not perfect, but this doesn't have to be that precise. Again, just for looks, I can sand this down flat. I can trim it up a little bit with my jigsaw to get a little bit closer to my line, or I can just sand it down. I'll probably just sand it down. Now that all of our pieces are cut, including the angle on our supports, which again is completely optional, we're ready to mill our hole or our slot in our center of our vertical piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and mark a T for my top. So the top is facing you right now. Well, I can work on that backwards. So I'll do a B for bottom and a T for top. So I'm going to go ahead and mark my center point at the top and then mark my center point at the bottom. And now I can just take my straight edge and connect those 2 lines. And right there. So I'm going to connect my straight edge, or my lines, so that should be dead center. These measurements aren't set in stone. In fact, none of these dimensions are set in stone. This is just, this seems to work best for the projectors, and it looked right to me. And I've built lots of things, so my opinion on the proper sizing should hold a little bit of weight. So we're going to measure up from the bottom about 4 inches. This is overkill. Like, you don't need this much of a slot. It's just better to have more adjustment than needed than not enough adjustment, right? And then I'm going to come down about 2 inches from the top. So that gives me my points right there. Now I'm going to drill out a hole with a 1/4 inch drill bit. All right, so we have a 1/4 inch bit. Now we're just going to drill through our board. I'm just setting this on a scrap board so I don't drill all the way through my workbench. And now, since this is a brad point bit, I don't know if that shows up well. Brad point bit has a sharp little point right there, so we're going to line our sharp point right on our mark and drill that out. Now that we have our 2 holes, we're going to use our straight edge again and just line up our straight edge with the outside edge of our circular hole. And then I'm going to draw a line connecting those 2 outside points. I'm going to do the same thing here. Align it with that outside edge and then connect the points. There we go. So that's going to be our slot that our bolts are going to ride up and down in for adjusting our height on our projector. Now we have our jigsaw, and now all we have to do is connect the dots. You want to get this as straight as possible. If it's not perfectly straight, it's not the end of the world. If anything, you want to err outside your line to make the hole a little bit wider than necessary. Okay, I didn't quite connect my line right there, so I'm gonna, there you go. To check the sizing of this, all you have to do is grab your 1/4 bolt and make sure that it slides freely up and down and doesn't rub. So my hole is a fair bit wider than necessary, just from, you know, the saw blade cut a little bit wider. But that's completely fine. As long as it moves freely up and down, that's all you need. Now we need to do the milling on our base. So what we're going to do is we're going to label, this is going to be the front edge and this is going to be the back edge. Okay? So now I'm going to rotate it like this just so I can measure up from the back 4 inches. And then up from the back 4 inches. I'm going to use my straight edge to extend my line right there. And then my vertical piece is going to set on the front side of the line. So I'm going to put an X and I'm going to cover the X. Now we need to mill out for our feet. For our feet, I'm using very simple furniture leveling feet that I purchased on Amazon that come with this little lock nut right here. And this just threads in. You can get a small little wrench and adjust it from underneath, or you can get a pair of pliers and adjust it from the top. I haven't found any with like a little slot here or anything. I wish I could. If you have an angle grinder and the skill set, you can grind a slot into there for a flathead screwdriver, but a small little wrench will work as well. My wife uses her pliers to fine tune it. Now, from my experiments, you only need 3 feet. Think of a tripod. With 4 feet, then you have to make sure, okay, now it's rocking. With 3 feet, it's never going to rock. And that way you can adjust your tilt and then your elevation with one go. With 4 feet, you'd have to kind of constantly adjust all 4 of them to do that. So it makes adjusting a little bit simpler. So we're going to do one in the back, in the middle. There we go. And then I'm going to use my small little square and extend that line. And I want to come in, I want my hole to be about 1 inch in. So I'm going to put a line at 1 inch right there. Since I have the hole marked, I'm going to go ahead and I have to use a 5/16 drill, no, a 7/16 drill bit for this. I'm going to pre-drill it with a smaller drill bit first. What that'll do is give me a guide hole, which will help me keep this bigger drill bit aligned better. Alright, so I've got that hole done. And now I'm going to do 2 more over here. So I'm just going to come in 1 inch and 1 inch. There we go. 1 inch. 1 inch. And 1 inch right there. Now I'm ready to install the feet, or the, oh, I'm blanking on what these are properly called right now. But these guys with the pokey bits, you just hammer in place. So I'm going to flip it over to the underside. That'll sit right there, and then I'll just take my mallet. And it's a little tricky getting these guys started, but once you do, you're good. There you go. And you hammer that in, those spikes engage, and then it doesn't go anywhere. So now I'm going to do the same thing with the other 2. Probably should have used a slightly bigger drill bit, but I like a tight fit. Okay, now my feet are done. This guy will just thread in like this. And then it will sit on your table. And then, like I said, you can take a set of pliers and fine tune it from the top, or you can get a little wrench and do it from underneath. It's not the easiest thing in the world. Again, if I could find something with an adjustment knob on top, that's what I would use, but I haven't been able to find one. Same thing with the other 3 feet, but for now we're going to take this out and move on to our next step. Now our vertical piece is going to go like this, and we're just going to screw this together with some regular wood screws. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just align this with my hand, and then I'm going to mark the other side. And so that basically gives me my 3/4 inch notch. Again, if you wanted to go full pro woodworker, you could, you know, dado this out where it sits in there, but it's overkill for what we're doing here. So now I'm just going to eyeball my center point. And now I've got my lines here, and I'm just going to pre-drill my holes. That way it'll automatically index them onto my bottom for me. And again, the spacing of these isn't scientific. It's just spaced enough. I think I'm going to do 4 screws. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball an even spacing of 4 wood screws. There we go. So that's good. Now I'm going to flip it over to the underside, and I want my screws to be flush, so I'm going to pull out my countersink, and I'm just going to go ahead and countersink those holes. So we're pretty much ready to assemble. So the first thing you always do is get another drink of coffee. And I have my drill with a drill bit. I have my 1 5/8" screws. I have my Phillips bit right there. I have my wood glue, and then of course I have my board. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to put some wood glue on my board right here. just spread that out with my finger. You don't have to do this. It's just make sure it doesn't run anywhere if you take the time to spread it out. And this is why I always wear dirty shirts. Well, not dirty shirts, but stained shirts that have paint and everything on them. Alright, so now we're just going to line that up. And we're going to get it as close on the line as possible. Again, like, this isn't super high precision stuff. So if it's off a little bit, it's not the end of the world. But we're going to do, you know, the best we can. Always do the best you can. But for stuff like this, finished is better than perfect. Especially if you're new to this. Don't hold yourself to too high of a standard. Alright, I pre-drilled that first hole. Now, before I pre-drill anything else, I'm going to go ahead and drive in my first screw. Let me turn that where you can see it a little bit. Oops, I moved a little bit. But that's why we pre-drill one at a time, so you can run your screw in. Like that. And now that my screw is sticking out right here, I can just make sure it sits into the hole that I just pre-drilled. And then I can pull it tight. There we go. Nice and tight. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to align it and do the bottom one, and then I'll do the two middle ones next. So same process. Switch over to our drill bit. We already pre-drilled our hole, so that gives us a guide point. Make sure we're on our line. There we go. We already have it glued. Then we're just going to screw this in. There we go. So now that the top and bottom are done, you can see that this holds in place. The two extra screws are just for security, basically. So now we have this guy, and we're, again, getting very close to done. Now all that's left is taking our support wings, again, the angle is completely optional, and just screwing those on. Now we're going to do pretty much the same thing we did earlier. Now my little square has a 3/8 inch offset, which is half of 3/4. So I can set that right here and use that to scribe my line for where my screw holes are going to be. I'm going to take this, set it right here so I can see where it's going. So I'm going to put my first screw right there, bottom screw right there, 3 and 4, just like that. See, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I have a new bit that does my countersink and drills my hole in one go. And then I just need to do a hole in the bottom. Do that about right here in the middle. Just one screw right there will be fine. Get that in. And then I'll have to go and do my countersink from the other side. And I'm just going to hold it into place and then pre-drill my first hole. And I forgot my glue, so I'm going to go ahead and put my glue on before I do anything else. So glue. And some glue. Alright. I'm going to hold everything in place to the best of my ability. And there we go. So that's our first screw. Now I'm going to do this bottom one right here. With plywood, you always want to pre-drill your holes. It's too likely to split if you don't. These are just 1 5/8 wood screws that you can get at the box store whenever you get the rest of your materials. There we go. Now, all that's left on the assembly of the body of this is to install this other piece on the other side exactly the same. Now that we have the, I'm going to call this the body of our stand done, we need to start working on the mount. The mount is the most complicated part of this, but it's still completely doable for an absolute beginner. So you'll notice that I call for 2 of these 10 1/4 inch blocks. I found that the projectors, my wife has 2 ultra short throw projectors, and I've built a mount for both of these, and now I'm just rebuilding it for the video. I found that the projector needs about 2 of these to stand off from the stand enough for everything to clear. On one of her projectors, this square worked just fine. All the holes were good. On one of them, I actually had to take my jigsaw and cut a curve around it to mount the projector. Alright, we're going to glue this together. There we go. And then set it on here, and then I'm going to kind of spread the glue around a little bit. And then I'm going to align this as closely as possible. If it's not absolutely perfect, it's not the end of the world. I'm going to grab my drill bit with my countersink already on it. Right there. And then I'm going to go ahead and drive a screw in this first hole. This time you will need to use shorter screws. You'll need to use an 1 1/4 inch screw. You can use 1 1/4 for this whole project. That's fine. I just like using a longer screw when I can. So now we're going to drive that in there. There we go. And then I'm going to make sure I'm as aligned as I can be. And then I'm going to come up here to this other corner. There we go. And right now I'm just putting the screws in approximately the 4 corners. If it's not absolutely perfect, that's fine. In fact, I might have to take these screws out later whenever I use my jigsaw. So essentially this is just clamping this down while the glue dries. Ta-da! Alright, so that's good. Now we need to install our 1/4 inch bolts. So we need to basically find the center point of this and then put 2 bolts in here. Alright, so 10 1/4 should be 5 1/8. So now we're going to do 5 1/8. Straight edge, extend my line. There we go. So I'm going to come in 2.5 inches from each side. And now I'm ready to drill this out. Now I'm just going to drill some 1/4 inch holes here. And these are just a true 1/4 inch hole, as straight as you can get it. Now we're just using some 1/4 bolts, again, straight from the hardware store. You can see those go through like that, and there's enough meat for it to go through the back of our support, and then we're going to use some knobs that just twist on right there. But you can see right here, it's sitting proud, so we got to lock that in somehow. We want to grab a drill bit that's slightly smaller than this. This is a 7/16 hex head. So I'm going to use a 3/8 inch bit, and I'm just going to come in enough to hammer that in. So about the thickness of this bolt head right here. Now I'm going to set that in here and test it out. Probably a little bit bigger would be best, but that tight fit is actually what we want. So I've relieved enough pressure here so I can take it and hammer that in. By hammering that in, it locks this bolt where it won't twist and turn, and it's a nice tight fit. So now I'm going to do the same thing with my second bolt. There we go. That's what we want, just like that for the mount. We're now ready to mount the actual projector mount to the stand. We're going to take it off in a little bit, but I'm just going to show you how this works. These 2 pins right here fit into your slot. You can see on the back how these bolts move up and down freely. It's exactly what you want. You can see you get a ton of adjustment here. And if for some reason these screw holes are too far apart, you could knock it out, drill a new hole, and put it in there. So that's, again, another point of adjustability. On the back, I do like to go ahead and put some washers. This will just allow it to slide a little bit easier. And then I have these inexpensive quarter 20 knobs that I picked up on Amazon. I order them by the 10-pack because I use them all over my shop for jigs and things like that. And you just thread that on. Once you tighten these up, this becomes incredibly solid. And then you can, as you add and remove tension on it, you can slide it where you see, yes, it slides, but it holds itself as I position it, so you can get it where you want. And then, of course, if you take all the slack off of it, it'll move freely. So those knobs give you all that adjustment. You also, just because my slide is slightly bigger, you have ever so slight, a little bit of side-to-side adjustment here if you need it, but you don't really have to have that. But, for example, if I tighten up this top screw and leave that bottom one loose, again, I have that little bit of side-to-side adjustment right there if I don't want to mess with these screws down at the bottom. So again, so much adjustability with this thing, and it's very solid. So that's essentially the mount. All that's left is figuring out how to attach it to your projector. So I'm going to go steal my wife's projector, which is completely calibrated, and come back and show you how I made the mount for that, and then I'm going to recreate it with you here. So I've unceremoniously stole my wife's projector from her craft room, right from her cutting table. So if you are projector sewists who have calibrated projectors, we're going to be mad. But she gets less mad at me now that she has this really nice mount, because it's super easy to calibrate. So set the mount right there. And now you can see that this mount is not the rectangle that I showed you how to make earlier, or the square I told you how to make earlier. I had to cut around it to get it to fit on here. So before I get too far, I want to do an overview of this. So as you see here, I started with the same rectangle. You can see as well that my bolts are a lot closer together because of what I had to actually cut off of here, which is why we make this bigger than we need it, and we're going to cut it down with our jigsaw. The screw holes are not aligned exactly, and we have to lay those out as well. So let me get this off of here, and then I'll show you how I just use a piece of paper to create a stencil to align all my screw holes. So you can see I've got my screw mounting holes right here. There's 5 on this particular Epson projector, but I have this funky curve I've now got to work around. And if I take this and set it on here, you can see, well, it goes like this. Make sure you keep it oriented right. It's not going to work, and this is in the wrong spot. So I'm going to go get myself a piece of paper, and then I'm going to use that to create a pattern. So I have my piece of paper, my scissors, masking tape, and then a pencil that I've made where I can do some shading with. So setting it on here, now just take my pencil, I'm going to tape this down so it doesn't move on me, because I do want this to be accurate. So this is just masking tape. I'm going to tape that down to the back of my projector, and then I'm going to go ahead and tape it up here at the top of my projector. Boom, just like that. So now I'm going to just shade. And you can see how it's marking my profile for me. So now I've got that profile right there, and then it's not working as well. There we go. You can see that profile right there. So you can see I've got my lines right now. Now I'm just going to go ahead and cut. I'm going to pull this off, and then I'm going to cut it with my scissors. Okay, so now that should fit right there, and it doesn't quite fit I'm bumping here at the bottom, so I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit more off of that. And then I need to take a little bit more off of this, because as I push it in here, I can see my line. So actually I'm going to take my pencil, push it down. It looks like my pattern's going to hit right here on this little curvy section, so I'm just going to cut that angle a little bit more so it doesn't hit. Now that we have this where we want it, or how it needs to be cut so it clears the projector jut out parts, I'm going to tape it down again to try to make it where it doesn't move. So I'm going to put a piece of tape right here at the top. And then I'm going to come and put another little piece of tape right here. There we go. And now I need to locate my screw holes. So I'm going to take my pencil and I've just done my screw hole right there. Same thing here. Just going to shade that and make my template. And then I'm going to come up here. I think that's right here, so I'm going to go ahead and shade that. There we go. And then I have another one way down here in the corner, and then I'm going to do that one. All right, we actually want to install this on the back side so that we can make sure to get it where we want it. And I'm going to mount it as in the middle as I can. You can see my screw holes, actually I'm going to lose a screw hole here, so that's not that big a deal. So I'm just going to put it right here on the top one. And then as you see, based on where the holes were, I need to shift it over a little bit so everything's getting in meet. And then tape that down. And this will actually serve as my pattern for my jigsaw. Now the screws we're going to use look like this. And you can see, I forget what size these are. Maybe my wife knows. What I did is I had a screw that worked, and I took it to the box store and used their thread pitch guy. I think it's metric. If I can determine what size this is, I will have it in the description and in the plans and the link that you need. Okay, so we want to drill that out now. So I need to get the proper size drill bit, and that's going to be a 3/16. All right, and so we have where our drill holes are going to be. So I'm going to go ahead and drill out the center of each of those. Now I have an issue, is these aren't long enough. I'm going to make because I used different scrap wood the first time I made it. So now I need to recess that a little bit. So I've decided a 5/16 bit is the best one to use. I don't want to go too deep, and I want to try to be consistent. So I'm going to use a piece of, again, masking tape, and I'm just going to mark up about 1/4 of an inch on my drill bit. And that'll help me from going down too far. So I'm just going to get it started. So once I cleared out the chips, that was enough. You can see I've got a few threads coming out right there. A little bit deeper would probably be a little bit better, but that's what we need. We want to make sure enough is coming through to actually screw this guy down. And then we can go ahead and push it out and take it out. So that works. Now we need to put our other 1/4-20 bolt into here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my square, and you can still see I have my center lines there. I'm going to go ahead and extend that down. Okay, so my screw hole is right there. And now I'm going to just kind of pull out my tape measure and eyeball where I want it. And based on what I'm seeing, I want it to be in about 1 inch. So I'm going to come in right about here. So that'll work as well. Now I just need to drill that out. There we go. now we're ready to cut this out. We're going to use our piece of paper as our pattern. If it's probably better to err on the size of a little bit too small than too big. So let's go ahead and get cutting. Okay. That's the bottom part of our template. And now we're just going to check it, see if it fits, and I have a few spots that are hitting. So it looks like right here I need to take off a little bit steeper of an angle, which is fine. So I'm going to take off a little bit more right there. Right there seems like it fits okay. It's just this one little spot that's hitting. So I'm going to go take that off and then come back and check that little corner. I'm going to see if it sits on here now. Nope, still have a little bit of hitting right here at this corner. So I can see that I need to kind of take that off a little bit sharper still. So I'm going to just kind of come up there and make sure I'm not cutting into where my screw location is going to go, but I'm going to take off that corner. I think I want to take off a little bit of this curve, kind of make this little curve a little bit more pronounced. So my template's about gone. So I can pull that off now. But then kind of come over, take off this little shaded area, and then that'll give me just a little bit more room to fine tune this guy. I'm gonna have to go through the other side for my bolts now. Oh well, not important. So do your bolts last, I guess. So let's see, that's gonna go there, and let's go ahead and attach it. So what I did to open up this hole is I put my same 3/16 drill bit in, and then I just ran it through and wiggled it a little bit while it was going. Not a lot, because you can definitely break your drill bit doing that. But that just reamed out that hole just enough to give myself a little bit more wiggle room. Our screw right there. Put that in. Alright, that's threading into place. Now this is the one that gave me issues, was it wouldn't go in. There it went. Nope, still not going, are we? It's like angled funny, isn't it? Alright, so let me take this one back out. Put that one in to place. There it went. Right there. Where'd you going? There it get. So, you know, this is part of this process, is making this mount work. So again, doing those holes slightly oversized has now given me the adjustment I need to get those screws to thread in where they have to go. There we go. So that is solid now. Now I've got to go back and correct this where I kind of got it a little bit backwards, but again, that's not that big a deal. So now I'm going to take this back off now that we've test fit it, make sure it's right. All right, same thing as before. I just need to ream this hole out about the thickness of my head. There we go. And that's good right there. Okay. So now, same thing as before, I'm going to hammer these into place. So that's going to set on. I'm going to go ahead and put my screw in. I'm not going to get it all the way tight because I want that wiggle room so that I can make sure I'm getting aligned into my holes. So that's the second one. And you can see now that I've got these holes reamed out and everything aligned, it's going in a lot easier. And now I've lost my fourth screw. Found the missing screw. And that goes right here into number 4. So now it's just, make sure your projector's pointed the correct way. So this is the bottom and that's the top. So I'm just going to be able to set it on there. And then make sure my washer's still on there and thread on that. Washer, and then thread that on. Alright, now that that's on here, we can go ahead and adjust it. You see you get tons of adjustment. And I'm going to lock down that top one. So now when you get your height, right, you can fine tune it like that a little bit. And then lock it down. And then of course you have your big adjustments all right here where you can adjust the height. And that is how you make a mount for your ultra short throw projector for pattern projecting sewing. So hope you found this video useful. I do have a set of plans that has all the cuts, measurements, hardware you need. The template is on you. You'll have to figure out how to make that template based on your projector. Branelyn at Dailey Sews and Stuff said that she might put together like a pattern, printable pattern for this particular Epson that she uses and recommends. So that is an option for you. And thanks for watching. Go to the recreationalwoodworker.com to purchase these plans and make this yourself. Have a great day. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, give it a like. If you disliked it, give it a dislike. If I've earned your subscription, I would love that. And you can go to Dailey Sews and Stuff to check out my wife's channel where she teaches you all about pattern projecting sewing, sewing in general, and other stuff, because her website and channel is called Dailey Sews and Stuff. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you later.